world, welcome back to The Sheep and the Wolf. Today I am bringing you my March wrap-up. For those of you who aren't overly familiar with BookTube, that means that I will be talking about the books that I read this month and also my thoughts about them. So the first book I read was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is the fifth book in the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Those of you who've been watching my videos recently will know that I've been participating in the Harry Potter 7 books read-along. This was hosted by Ashley on Goodreads, and she is also a booktuber, so I will link her channel down below. Anyway, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Of this reread of the entire series, this book was probably my least favourite, and that's probably also the case in general. As in, it's generally my least favourite Harry Potter book, not just during this read-along. I call it the headache book, not only because Harry keeps having headaches, but also because I'm a pretty sensitive person and all the bickering and the anger in the books gives me headaches. But it's still a Harry Potter book and there is definitely some good stuff in it as well. It's not as if I hate it or anything. Next is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. What I like about this book is the balance between the Hogwarts stuff, you know, the courses that they're taking, and Quidditch and the love stories, and everything else that's happening outside of the castle in the wizarding world. I feel like the first 3 books especially are very much focused on what happens in school, and from the 4th book onwards you kind of get to explore the rest of the magical world as well. What I don't like about the Half-Blood Prince is the whole what's Malfoy up to storyline. I mean, I get it and I do understand why it's such a big deal, but for me it's just so exhausting to read. Because basically Harry is on to Malfoy immediately and then nothing happens until everything happens. I don't want to go into spoiler territory because I don't want to ruin it for like the one person in the world who hasn't read Harry Potter, but you'll know what I mean. Overall though, I really do like the Half-Blood Prince, even though I had a really hard time coping with the ending the first time I read it. Finally, in the read-along, I read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling, which is the last book in the series, as I'm sure everybody knows. I've always enjoyed this book, but there was something about this reread that made it particularly worthwhile. I really sort of settled down and absorbed every detail. It might also have helped that I was in bed with food poisoning, so I didn't have anything else to do. The funny thing is, and this is also something that I talked about with another participant in the read-along, that even though we know what's coming because we've read the books, we just couldn't stop, you know, like I have to get to the next chapter. I don't know, there is just something about this book. So yeah, overall I really enjoyed this reread, and I also really enjoyed participating in the read-along. I'm really happy that I did this. I will leave the link to the Goodreads group down below. Obviously the read-along is finished, but if you still want to participate in the discussions, you can. I also read Cinder by Marissa Meyer in March. Obviously this book has been around on BookTube for a while, but I only ordered it off the book depository in February, I think. As you will know if you have seen my unboxing video. I love a good fairy tale retelling or adaptation or any of that stuff, but I was kind of afraid that I wouldn't like this book. There are so many dystopian slash futuristic slash sci-fi YA novels being put out at the moment that I was afraid that it was just going to be one of those books, you know, if that makes any sense. But I'm very happy to report that I was proven wrong in this case, and that I really enjoyed Cinder tremendously. So the book is about a girl named Cinder, surprise surprise, who is obviously an interpretation of Cinderella. She lives in New Beijing with her stepmother and her 2 stepsisters. She's a mechanic, and a very good one, and one day the prince comes by to have her fix his robot, basically. I mean, if you know Cinderella, and who doesn't know Cinderella, then you'll know where this is going, but I still really enjoyed reading it. I like Cinder as a character. I love that she's the best mechanic in town, and I can't wait to get into the rest of the series. I'm very curious to see how this sort of world unfolds. The next book I read is Wildwood by Colin Meloy. I was really excited for this one, as you will have seen if you've watched my book haul video from a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, it didn't really live up to my expectations at all. It started out quite promising. It's the story of Prue, who lives in Portland, Oregon, and she's 12 years old, I believe, and when she is babysitting her baby brother, he is kidnapped by a murder of crows and taken into the forest. The forest is known by the locals as the Impassable Wilderness. Prue and a friend from her school go after her little brother to get him back, and they discover that the Impassable Wilderness is actually not impassable, and also that it's inhabited by a variety of people as well as animals that are walking, talking, wearing clothes, driving cars and all that kind of stuff. I don't actually know if the animals drive cars, but you get the idea. The plot itself is a bit dull, but it's not terrible. It's definitely not the worst that I've ever read. But there were a few things about the book that really bothered me, and the one thing that I kind of want to go into today, because I also want to do a book review of this book, is the language. Now, I realise that every author has their own voice and their own style, and I'm not going to like every one of them, and that's fine. But what really annoyed the crap out of me, to be honest, is the use of certain words and phrases that were just wrong. Like, I think I know what he meant, but I just wanted to talk to the author through the book and just explain, like, this word doesn't mean what you think it means. This phrase doesn't mean the thing you think it means when you're using it that way. To be honest, I was a little shocked. I mean, I know my English is quite good, I studied English, but I am not a native speaker, and if I pick up on those mistakes, then how come the editor didn't? Also, the pretentiousness of the language took me out of the story a lot. This is supposed to be a middle grade children's fantasy book, but I don't know what would happen if you had a 10-year-old read this. Overall, I was definitely not blown away by this book, and I am seriously reconsidering my desire to get all the books in the series. I mean, the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. They are adorable, but I don't think I will enjoy the books if they are anything like the first one, and so I kind of don't want to spend my money on them. The final book I read this month is a Dutch book. It's called Rode Sneeuw in December, which translates to Red Snow in December, by Simone van der Vlugt. I borrowed this off someone and already returned it, so unfortunately I don't have it here. It was a flipback edition, which basically means that you read it like this, except it's very tiny. It's great, you can just put it in your coat pocket and then go out and have a book with you. I don't think this book has been translated into English, and I don't know how much fun it would be for non-Dutch people to hear too much about this, so I will be brief. It's a historical novel set during the 80 Years' War between what is now the Netherlands and Belgium and some other areas versus Spain. This had to do with the Dutch not being great fans of Spanish rule and the high taxes they had to pay, but it also had a lot to do with the Reformation. The Dutch population was becoming increasingly Protestant, and the Catholic Spaniards didn't like this. It wasn't really a war as we would think of now, obviously, first of all because it happened in the 16th and 17th century, but also because it lasted 80 years, so it was very different from kind of the intense battle that we would picture now. Although there was definitely some intense battling. Anyway, the story follows a woman, Liedewij, who eventually gets married and has children, and then the story starts following her oldest daughter, so it's kind of spread out over 2 generations. It also follows William of Orange, who was our prince at the time. It's a very different book from what I normally read, but I did really enjoy it, not least of all because quite a large chunk of it was set in Leiden, which is where I live, so that was pretty cool. So that's it, that's all I read this month. I hope you liked this video. For some reason, the preparation for it took a long time, so you better like it. Editing is probably also going to take a long time because it's super stormy outside. It's like the wind noise is ridiculous. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next time.